Welcome to my channel. I'm reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is the Barnes & Noble Classics edition. There are footnotes and endnotes that I'll be referencing occasionally as I read. I will not be reading the entire thing aloud. If you've watched my other videos, you know that. I'll just be reading parts of it that I think are particularly well written and, offering commentary here and there if I think it's warranted. I'm up to chapter 15. So we're more than halfway through. And at this point, the creature is telling Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, about his life after he was created and sort of ran away. He's telling him about a family who's been living in a cottage, and he's been living with them without their knowledge, sort of hiding out, helping them every now and then without ever revealing himself to them. And he tells about how he learned the family's story, about how they came to be living in this cottage, how they came to be, in their current state, because they used to be rich, but because they tried to help other people, they were driven out of their homes, and now it's just the old blind father, the son, the daughter, and the Turkish woman that the son helped. And you can get the full synopsis in the last video. But there we are, chapter 15. This is how Frankenstein's creature, who does not have a name yet, but maybe he'll get one soon. This is how he learned about morality, and about good versus evil, and about how human beings treat each other, and even some things about the world itself, the world at large, world history, that sort of thing. A self-taught creature. He says that the concept of crime is still a distant evil to him, but benevolence and generosity were ever present before me, inciting within me a desire to become an actor in the busy scene where so many admirable qualities were called forth and displayed. Remember, at this point, he's never actually interacted with another human being. He's shown himself a few times, and they've always reacted with horror and fear, even Victor right at the beginning. But in giving an account of the progress of my intellect, I must not omit a circumstance which occurred in the beginning of the month of August of the same year. One night, during my accustomed visit to the neighboring woods, where I collected my own food and brought home firewood for my protectors, I found on a ground a leathern portmanteau, which I think is a kind of suitcase, containing several articles of dress and some books. I eagerly seized the prize and returned with it to my hovel. Fortunately, the books were written in the language, the elements of which I had acquired at the cottage. They consisted of Paradise Lost, volume of Plutarch's Lives, and The Sorrows of Werter. There's an endnote here. It says, says that Mary Shelley had read each of these books the previous year, and they profoundly affected her shaping of the monster as well as the text. Milton's Paradise Lost is quoted and referenced throughout Frankenstein. The monster and Victor both sympathize closely with Milton's Satan, the overreacher and outcast. The Greek essayist Plutarch is most famous for his Parallel Lives, a collection of biographies of famous Greeks and Romans. The English translation of Plutarch's Lives profoundly affected English literature, particularly Shakespeare's plays. And the sorrows of young Werther popularized the new emotional awareness of the Romantic Age, a radical departure from the order and control exemplified by Enlightenment writers. Should probably put each of those on the reading list. Certainly Paradise Lost. I may even read that on cam in the future. That'll be a long one, I'm sure. Talks about the effect that reading these books has on him, particularly the Sorrows of Werther. He draws parallels between that story and the people who live in the cottage. Says that the more he reads, the more he starts to wonder if he has any connections to anyone at all, so that there would be none to lament my annihilation. My person was hideous and my stature gigantic. What did this mean? Who was I? What was I? Whence did I come? What was my destination? These questions continually recurred, but I was unable to solve them. Paradise Lost, he says, excited different and far deeper emotions. I read it as I had read the other volumes which had fallen into my hands, as a true history. That's always something to look out for, knowing the difference between fact and fiction. But, I mean, he's less than a year old, so you can't really blame him. It moved every feeling of wonder and awe that the picture of an omnipotent God warring with his creatures was capable of exciting. I often referred the several situations, as their similarities struck me, to my own. Like Adam, I was apparently united by no link to any other being in existence. But his state was far different from mine in every other respect. He had come forth from the hands of God, a perfect creature, happy and prosperous, guarded by the especial care of his Creator. He was allowed to converse with and acquire knowledge from beings of a superior nature. But I was wretched, helpless, and alone. Many times I considered Satan as the fitter emblem of my condition, for often, like him, when I viewed the bliss of my protectors, the bitter gall of envy rose within me. Ooh. Another circumstance, he says, strengthened and confirmed these feelings. Soon after my arrival, I discovered some papers which I had taken from your laboratory. At first I had neglected them, but now that I was able to decipher the characters in which they were written, I began to study them with diligence. It was your journal of the 4 months that preceded my creation. You minutely described in these papers every step you took in the progress of your work. This history was mingled with accounts of domestic occurrences. You doubtless recollect these papers. Here they are. Everything is related in them which bears reference to my accursed origin. The whole detail of that series of disgusting circumstances which produced it is set in view. The minutest description of my odious and loathsome person is given in language which painted your own horrors and rendered mine indelible. I sickened as I read, "Hateful day when I received life," I exclaimed in agony. "Accursed Creator, why did you form a monster so hideous that even you turned from me in disgust? God in pity made man beautiful and alluring after his own image, but my form is a filthy type of yours, more horrid even from the very resemblance. Satan had his companions, fellow devils, to admire and encourage him, but I am solitary and abhorred." These were the reflections of my hours of despondency and solitude. But when I contemplated the virtues of the cottagers, their amiable and benevolent dispositions, I persuaded myself that when they should become acquainted with my admiration of their virtues, they would compassionate me, and overlook my personal deformity. Could they turn from their door one, however monstrous, who solicited their compassion and friendship? I resolved at least not to despair, but in every way to fit myself for an interview with them which would decide my fate. I postponed this attempt for some months longer, for the importance attached to its success inspired me with a dread lest I should fail. Besides, I found that my understanding improved so much with every day's experience that I was unwilling to commence this undertaking until a few more months should have added to my sagacity. He goes on to talk about how things change in the cottage during those months. Trying to come up with a parallel for his decision. I mean, it's weird for him to be just watching these people and watching their lives and trying to come up with the best way to introduce himself to them. It's almost like approaching your crush at school. But it's deeper than that, obviously. He's talking about a complete rejection before he even opens his mouth. He's not just talking about something social, he's talking about something existential. Presenting yourself to others when there's a chance they'll reject you based solely on your appearance, even though you know they're good people. You're so conscious of how different you look from them that you suspect they'll reject you solely based on that before you even get a chance to tell them how much you admire them. It's kind of like I want to say racial prejudice. I don't really feel comfortable making that analogy though. But it's the closest one that I can think of. I endeavored to crush these fears and to fortify myself for the trial which in a few months I resolved to undergo. And sometimes I allowed my thoughts, unchecked by reason, to ramble in the fields of paradise, and dared to fancy amiable and lovely creatures sympathizing with my feelings and cheering my gloom. Their angelic countenances breathed smiles of consolation, but it was all a dream. No Eve soothed my sorrows nor shared my thoughts. I was alone. I remembered Adam's supplication to his Creator, but where was mine? He had abandoned me, and in the bitterness of my heart I cursed him. There's another end note here. It says that let's see here. Says that he's probably talking about the quote that's on the title page, Paradise Lost, Book 10. Did I request thee, Maker, from my clay, to mold me man? Did I solicit thee from darkness to promote me? Adam can at least ask God that. But the creature can't ask Victor that. Not yet. I mean, obviously he's speaking to him now, so we'll probably have that conversation in a minute. But he's still telling him his story at this point, and Victor is being remarkably... I mean, this is just a narrative style, obviously, but you would expect Victor to speak up at some point during this. But he's being a very good listener. He talks about autumn coming on and passing into winter even. His plan, he says, is to wait until the old man is alone because he knows that he's blind and even though his voice is, even though the creature's voice is harsh, it has nothing terrible in it. I thought, therefore, that if in the absence of his children I could gain the goodwill and meditation of the old man, I might by his means be tolerated by the younger ones. When his children had departed, he took up his guitar and played several mournful but sweet airs, more sweet and mournful than I had ever heard him play before. At first his countenance was illuminated with pleasure, but as he continued, thoughtfulness and sadness succeeded. At length, laying aside the instrument, he sat absorbed in reflection. My heart beat quick. This was the hour and moment of trial which would decide my hopes or realize my fears. Yet when I proceeded to execute my plan, my limbs failed me and I sank to the ground. Again I rose, and, exerting all the firmness of which I was master, removed the planks which I had placed before my hovel to conceal my retreat. I approached the door of their cottage. I knocked. "Who is there?" said the old man. "Come in." I entered. "Pardon this intrusion," said I. "I am a traveler in want of a little rest. You would greatly oblige me if you would allow me to remain a few minutes before the fire." "Enter," said the and I will try in what manner I can to relieve your wants. I sat down, and a silence ensued. I knew that every minute was precious to me, yet I remained irresolute in what manner to commence the interview. When the old man addressed me, "By your language, stranger, I suppose you are my countrymen. Are you French?" "No, but I was educated by a French family, and understand that language only." That's true from a certain point of view. I am now going to claim the protection of some friends whom I sincerely love, and of whose favor I have some hopes. Are they Germans? No, they are French. Again, that's... But let us change the subject. I am an unfortunate and deserted creature. I look around, and I have no relation or friend upon earth. These amiable people to whom I go have never seen me, and know little of me. I am full of fears, for if I fail there, I am an outcast in the world forever. Do not despair. To be friendless is indeed to be unfortunate, but the hearts of men, when unprejudiced by any obvious self-interest, are full of brotherly love and charity. Rely therefore on your hopes, and if these friends are good and amiable, do not despair. They are kind. They are the most excellent creatures in the world. But unfortunately they are prejudiced against me. I have good dispositions. My life has been hitherto harmless, and in some degree beneficial. But a fatal prejudice clouds their eyes, and where they ought to see a feeling and kind friend, they behold only a detestable monster. That is indeed unfortunate. But if you are really blameless, cannot you undeceive them? I am about to undertake that task, and it is on that account that I feel so many overwhelming terrors. I tenderly love these friends. I have, unknown to them, been for many months in the habits of daily kindness towards them. But they believe that I wish to injure them, and it is that prejudice which I wish to overcome. Where do these friends reside? Near this spot? The old man paused and then continued. If you will unreservedly confide to me the particulars of your tale, perhaps I may be of use in undeceiving them. I am blind and cannot judge your countenance, but there is something in your words which persuades me that you are sincere. I am poor and an exile, but it will afford me true pleasure to be in any way serviceable to a human creature. Excellent man. I thank you, and accept your generous offer. You raise me from the dust by this kindness, and I trust that by your aid I shall not be driven from the society and sympathy of your fellow creatures. Heaven forbid, even if you were really criminal, for that can only drive you to desperation, and not instigate you to virtue. I also am unfortunate. I and my family have been condemned, although innocent. Judge, therefore, if I do not feel for your misfortunes. How can I thank you, my best and only benefactor? From your lips first have I heard the voice of kindness directed towards me. I shall be forever grateful, and your present humanity assures me of success with those friends whom I am on the point of meeting. May I know the names and residence of those friends? Finally, a direct question that the creature can't skirt. I paused. This, I thought, was the moment of decision, which was to rob me of or bestow happiness on me forever. This is actually really tense. I struggled vainly for firmness sufficient to answer him, but the effort destroyed all my remaining strength. Gonna have to stop soon. I sank on the chair and sobbed aloud. At that moment I heard the steps of my younger protectors. I had not a moment to lose, but seizing the hand of the old man, I cried, "Now is the time. Save and protect me. You and your family are the friends whom I seek. Do not you desert me in the hour of trial." "Great God!" exclaimed the old man. "Who are you?" At that instant the cottage door was opened, and Felix, Safie, and Agatha entered. Who can describe their horror and consternation on beholding me? Agatha fainted, and Safie, unable to attend to her friend, rushed out of the cottage. Felix darted forward, and with supernatural force tore me from his father, to whose knees I clung. In a transport of fury, he dashed me to the ground and struck me violently with a stick. I could have torn him limb from limb as the lion rends the antelope. But my heart sunk within me as with bitter sickness, and I refrained. I saw him on the point of repeating his blow when, overcome by pain and anguish, I quitted the cottage, and in the general tumult escaped unperceived to my hovel. There it is. I think I am going to stop there. That's the end of the chapter. And that's... I mean, there's really nothing to say about that. Except to ask the question, how many of us have behaved the same way towards somebody just because of how they look? Thank you for watching. I'll read more later.